Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي ربنا زدنا علما. Bab من ترك, the one who left, بعض, some of, al-ikhtiyari. What does ikhtiyar mean? Choice. So, a matter concerning which he has a choice. Meaning, if he does it or if he doesn't do it, it's not that big of a deal. It's not something that is wajib or fard that he has to do, or it's not something that is haram that he has to refrain from. It is, something of choice. So, he leaves some of it, he doesn't do it. Why? مَخَافَةَ, out of fear of, an that يَقْصُرَ. It has qasr, meaning it falls short. It is deficient. What falls short? فَهْمُ, the comprehension, the understanding of بَعْضِ النَّاسِ, of some people, عَنْهُ, from it, فَيَقَعُوا, so they will fall, فِي, in, أَشَدَّ مِنْهُ, that which is more severe than that which is more worse than that. So, can a person leave something with regards to which he has a choice? Why? Out of fear that some people will not be able to understand it. If he does it, or if he says it, if he mentions it, some people will not be able to understand it. Why? Because they're not at that level. And if he mentions it, what will happen? People will fall into fitna. So, is he concealing knowledge? Is he hiding something that he should not be hiding? No. A person has that choice. And sometimes it is better not to mention something. Why? Because it can cause greater harm. The harm exceeds the benefit. But remember, when it comes to something that is wajib, something that is necessary, then do you have a choice concerning that? No. So for example, if somebody asks you, and you know that they don't like to do it, if they ask you, is it necessary to pray salah 5 times a day? And you know that they don't like to pray, then what are you supposed to say at that time? Yes, it is. It doesn't mean that you become harsh with them, you say it in a manner that they don't like. No. You explain to them, you tell them nicely, you make it logical for them, but you don't have a choice concerning that. You have to give the answer and you have to tell them what is wajib. But if it's a matter that is not wajib, that is not haram, you have a choice concerning that, it is mubah, then what should you do? You can choose not to say it. You can choose not to mention it. Why? Because then people will fall into a greater fitna. People will fall into a greater fitna. Why? Because they're not at that level to understand. So, what do we learn from this bab, from this chapter heading? That if a person does not impart all knowledge that he has for a genuine reason, then it is not a sin upon him. You don't have to give all of the information that you know. You don't have to pass on everything that you know, because it will cause people to be in problems. حدثنا عبيد الله بن موسى عن إسرائيل عن أبي إسحاق عن الأسودي قال, he said, قال لي, he said to me. Who said to who? Ibn Zubayr. So Abdullah ibn Zubayr, he said to me. Who does me refer to? Al-Aswad. So Aswad is the one who is narrating it. And Ibn Zubayr said to him that كانت عائشة رضي الله عنها, she used to تسر إليك. She used to confide in you, meaning she used to share some secrets with you. She used to tell something that she did not tell everybody of. كثيرا, much, meaning a lot. She used to tell you many things, only you and not to everybody. Why would she do that? Who was Aswad? Aswad was the nephew of Aisha radhiyallahu anha. And Abdullah ibn Zubayr was also the nephew. And we learned that Aisha radhiyallahu anha, she taught her male relatives, especially Abdullah ibn Zubayr as well as Aswad. So, you can imagine that if a person has 2 students or there are 2 people and one learns about something and the other doesn't know, then the other will be curious. Isn't it so? So likewise, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, he was curious. So he said to Aswad, so she used to tell you many things. Tell me, what did she tell you concerning this matter? فَمَا حَدَّثَتْكَ. So what did she narrate to you? حَدَّثَت, she narrated ka, to you, fil Kaaba, concerning the Kaaba. What did she tell you about the Kaaba? قُلْتُ, I said, meaning Aswad said, قَالَتْ لِي, she said to me, قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, he said, يا عائشة, O Aisha, لولا قومك, if it was not for your people, حديث, new, عهدهم, their era. their time. Meaning, if they had not recently entered into Islam, your people had not recently become Muslim. Ahd does not just mean promise. Okay, it has many meanings. So if they had not and hadith over here does not mean speech, but what does it mean? New. It's being used in its literal sense. So had they not recently embraced Islam, had their Islam not been new, and if I had not had fear of their kufr, قال Ibn Zubayr, he said this when he was narrating بِكُفْرٍ, of kufr, meaning the Prophet ﷺ was afraid that because they are new Muslims, they might revert to disbelief because of such and such. لَنَقَضْتُ, surely I would definitely dismantle what? Al-Ka'bata, the Kaaba, meaning I would cause it to be demolished. فَجَعَلْتُ لَهَا, so I would make for it, meaning the Kaaba, بَابَيْنِ, 2 doors. Babun, 1 door, يَدْخُلُ النَّاسِ, the people would enter from, وَبَابٌ, and a door, يَخْرُجُونَ, they would come out of. فَفَعَلَهُ Ibn Zubayr, so Ibn Zubayr, he did it. So this was the wish of the Prophet ﷺ to construct the Kaaba in a way that it would have 2 doors, so that people can enter 1 door and leave the other. And the Prophet ﷺ did not do so. Why? Because the people had recently embraced Islam. Many people had. And we know that the mushrikeen, they had a lot of respect, a lot of love for the Kaaba. And if the Prophet ﷺ would reconstruct the Kaaba, then what would happen? They would fall into a lot of fitna. The Prophet ﷺ had ikhtiyar concerning this. He had a choice. It wasn't wajib, it wasn't mandatory to construct the Kaaba in this way. No, this was something that he wished. This is something that he liked. He wanted to do it, but it was not something mandatory. If it was mandatory, he would have done it. But it was not mandatory, so he did not do it. So this teaches us a very, very important lesson. That when it comes to matters which are mubah, don't make a big deal out of them. When it comes to matters which are not wajib, they are not haram, don't make a big deal out of them. Because if you do so, then people will fall into fitna. The question is, why did the Prophet ﷺ want to reconstruct the Kaaba? Why did he want to make it in a way that there would be 2 doors to it? The reason is that the Kaaba that was present at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the way it was constructed, it was not constructed on the original foundations. It was not constructed on the original foundations. So he wanted that the building be demolished and reconstructed again on the original foundations, as Ibrahim a.s. had built it. And when the Kaaba would be built over there, he would have 2 doors as well. An addition that he would make, that he wanted to make. I'll tell you a little bit of history about the construction of the Kaaba. Who is the first one who constructed the Kaaba? What do we know? Adam a.s. is the first person to construct the Kaaba, and the angels also participated in the construction of the Kaaba. You can imagine, there was no way that stones could be brought and cut and a building be built, especially by one man. So the angels are the ones who also participated in the construction of the Kaaba. And this is what we learn in the Quran, that إِنَّ أَوَّلَ بَيْتٍ وُضِعَ لِلنَّاسِ لَلَّذِي بِبَكَّةَ. The first house to be built was where? In Makkah. And Adam a.s. was the one to construct it. And we learned that at the time of the floods of Nuh a.s., the Kaaba, it is said that it was lifted up. From the earth, it was lifted up, and what we know to be Baytul Ma'mur is that structure. Okay, so that structure that was present on earth, built by Adam a.s., was lifted up into the heavens, and now it is Baytul Ma'mur, where the angels go and perform tawaf. So there was no more Kaaba then. So who constructed the Kaaba again? Ibrahim a.s. So Ibrahim a.s. did the second construction of the Kaaba, and Ibrahim and Ismail a.s., and we learn about it in the Quran, وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَاعِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَاعِيل. Both of them were raising the foundations of the Bayt, meaning they were constructing it. And after that, obviously, there were many times that the Kaaba was fixed or renovated, you can say. However, the foundations were the same as those that Ibrahim a.s. had made. And we know that sometime before the Prophet ﷺ received prophethood, there were floods in Makkah, and the Kaaba, it was also affected. So the Quraysh, the mushrikeen, they had to reconstruct the Kaaba. Okay? There was a huge flood, and as a result of that, the Kaaba was demolished, and they had to reconstruct it. So when they were reconstructing the Kaaba, what happened was that they fell short in the material that they had. And they could not make the Kaaba as big as it was. They could not construct it as big as it was on the original foundations. And this shows that the Quraysh, the Mushrikeen, the Arabs, some of them were very wealthy, but still, they were not that wealthy. Especially at that time. Why? Because they were desert dwellers, right? So, they fell short in their material and they constructed the Kaaba slightly smaller than the original size. And we know that the Prophet ﷺ also took part in this construction. And we know that he is the one who placed the Hajar Aswad. And everybody was happy with that. Everybody agreed to that. And at the conquest of Makkah, the Prophet ﷺ, he expressed his desire to construct the Kaaba the way Ibrahim a.s. had constructed it. He wanted that the Kaaba should be on the original foundations. It should be big. And he didn't do so. Why? Because all people would not be ready to accept it. And it would cause them fitna in their faith. So this is the reason why the Prophet ﷺ did not do it. And he did not even tell everybody about it. He confided in his wife, Aisha radiallahu anha. And Aisha radiallahu anha, she, after the death of the Prophet ﷺ, told her nephew, Aswad, and he told Ibn Zubayr. And when Abdullah ibn Zubayr, he took power of Makkah. We know that there was fitna, he revolted and he took power of Makkah. At that time, we know that forces were sent against him, as we learned earlier. And those armies, they attacked Makkah from outside. And it is said that catapults were used to hurl stones. And because of that, many buildings were affected, including the Kaaba. The Kaaba was also affected, to the point that it was almost ruined, demolished. So Abdullah ibn Zubayr, he had to reconstruct the Kaaba. So when he reconstructed the Kaaba, he constructed it on the original foundations. Because he knew that the Prophet ﷺ expressed his wish. And before reconstructing, they found the original foundations. They dug, and when they discovered the original foundations, they built the Kaaba on that. And he made the Kaaba in such a way that there were two doors. One door through which people would enter, and the other through which they would leave. And then what happened? It was like that until Abdullah ibn Zubayr, he lost power. Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, he took over. And the Khalifa, Abdul Malik al-Marwan, he instructed Hajjaj to demolish the Kaaba again and reconstruct it as it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Why? Out of enmity against who? Abdullah ibn Zubayr. But when Abdul Malik was informed about the wish of the Prophet ﷺ, he said, had I known, I would not have commanded. I would not have instructed it. Because they were human beings. There was fitna. And so then the Kaaba was as it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And then after some time, when the Umayyads Khilafat collapsed and the Abbasids, they gained power, their Khalifa, he decided that he was going to demolish the Kaaba again and have it constructed as Abdullah ibn Zubayr constructed. But then Imam Malik, he intervened. And he said, stop it. Stop it. لا تجعل بيت الله ملاعبة للملوك. Don't make the house of Allah a toy, something that the kings are playing with. That one king comes and he builds a castle, a structure, and the other king comes and he destroys it in enmity against him, and the other comes and he destroys it. The house of Allah is not a game. This is not something that you can play with. So have respect for the house of Allah. Imam Malik, he opposed it very strongly, and the Khalifa, he listened to him. And he decided not to touch the Kaaba, not to change its architecture, and till today, it is the same. And yes, many times the Kaaba has been reconstructed for the purpose of improvement or because of being affected by, weather and over time, it does get affected. So it has been rebuilt several times. However, the structure, the architecture has been kept the same as it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So the Kaaba has only one door, and there is a part of it that is on the outside that is left, and we know that as the Hatim or the Hijr. Now, you might wonder that this was the wish of the Prophet ﷺ, and that is how Ibrahim a.s. had constructed the Kaaba. So, it was a good wish. So now that the Muslims know, and now that there's some stability, so shouldn't we build the Kaaba as the Prophet ﷺ wanted it to be? The thing is that if, again, this begins, the reconstruction of Kaaba in a different form, in a different structure, then this is going to continue. One king after the other, one government after the other, one ruler after the other. So out of respect for the Kaaba, we should leave it as it is. And especially because there is ikhtiyar concerning it. There is a choice concerning it. If it was really that big of a deal, the Prophet ﷺ would have it done. If he didn't touch it, if he didn't have it done, so that means that we don't have to worry too much about that either. And there is much benefit in the way that the Kaaba is now, in the way that it has been left. If there were two doors to the Kaaba, one way people would enter, the other they would leave. Who would leave? Who would move? Nobody would move. People would suffocate to death. There would be stampedes. And people who are doing tawaf outside of the Kaaba, their tawaf would be interfered, their tawaf would be interrupted. Many people would be killed in this way. Even now, people die, people faint in their attempt to go touch the Hajar, in their attempt to just touch the door of the Kaaba. Imagine if people would be allowed to enter the Kaaba, how much chaos there would be. So there is definitely benefit in this. And the wish of the Prophet ﷺ is fulfilled in another way. He wanted that there be two entrances to the Kaaba. One through which people enter and the other through which people leave. The Kaaba, right around it, right by it, on one side is the Hatim, right? The Hijr. And that is the part that was part of the original structure, but they weren't able to include that due to shortage of materials, so they left it out. But if you look at it, there's a wall that is built around it, and there are two entrances to it. So people can enter through one and leave through the other. And there's an added benefit to that. People are not as attached to the Hatim as they would be to the Kaaba itself. So yes, people go and they pray over there, they stand over there, they make dua over there, but it's not as bad as it could have been if there were two doors to the Kaaba. So this shows to us that, whatever Allah decides, whatever Allah decrees, then we should be happy with it and we should accept it. If the Prophet ﷺ accepted it, then we should also accept it and we should also be happy with it. There's always hikmah in the decisions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether they're kawni or they're shari'i. Anything you'd like to add before we continue?
If there are some things that are mubah, we shouldn't make a big deal out of it. How do we do this in daily life? Could we please get an example? This is a huge thing. I'm just talking about ordinary things in life.
For example, if somebody doesn't want to eat a particular food, they have the choice to eat it or not eat it. It's not fard on them to eat it. It's not haram on them to not eat it. They have a choice. So if they choose to eat it or they choose not to eat it, don't make a big deal out of it. For example, some people, I know a friend of mine who's very health conscious, who's very careful about what she eats. She avoids all processed foods. She will avoid a lot of dairy because of her health issues and because of her choices. She doesn't say that dairy is haram. She doesn't say that grains are haram. But people say to her that, it's as though you are making food haram. But it's just her choice. And she has that choice. She doesn't say it is haram to eat dairy or it is haram to eat such and such food. It's her choice. Don't make a big deal out of it. Leave it. When it comes to ilm, for instance, if a verse of the Quran is being explained, and you find several verses that further explain that verse. You mention one, you mention two. But is it necessary that you mention all 5 or 6? No. You have a choice concerning that. If you mention 1 or 2, you've fulfilled your responsibility of explaining the verse. But if you go on mentioning one after the other, it will become heavy on the people. They will forget what was being explained and they will get lost in the references. So, you have a choice. So, it's okay. Don't put people in difficulty.
I was just thinking that when you're teaching somebody and they're beginner level, you don't teach them, and you're an advanced level, you're not going to teach them everything at once because it might scare them and, they might think that deen is very hard or, and it's unnecessary. So even though you know a lot, you don't need to tell everything
that you know. Because especially for us, for instance, grammar, it's become so easy. So we start saying one word after the other, one term after the other, and people are like, what did you say? They have no idea. It is said that at the flood which came at the time of Nuh alayhi salam, the Kaaba was lifted up. Okay? It was lifted up to the heavens, and now it is the Bayt al-Ma'mur. That structure has been taken up into the heavens, and that is the Bayt al-Ma'mur around which the angels perform tawaf. And this is something that's absolutely easy for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If He could lift up Isa alayhi salam, then He can definitely lift up the house of Allah as well. If the angel can come down with wahi, then something can also go up. Allah knows what comes down and what goes up. مَا يَنزِلُ وَمَا يَعْرُجُ. Bab man khassa bil ilmi qawman. The one who khassa, he specified He made khas, bil-ilmi, with ilm, qawman, a people, duna qawmin, and not other people. Instead of, rather than other people. Why? Karahiyata, out of dislike, out of fear, alla yafhamu, that they will not understand. That a person selects certain people for some ilm, and he does not make it public. Everyone is not allowed to come into that majlis. Everyone is not allowed to attend that class. Is that okay? Yes. Why? Because everyone is not at the same level of ilm. Some people, their level is higher, is advanced, and some people, their level is just beginner or intermediate. And if beginners are mixed with the advanced levels, then what will happen? What will happen? Both parties will get discouraged. Both parties will not be able to benefit. Why? Because the advanced will be prevented from going forward, and the beginners will be affected in the sense that they will not be able to understand anything, and they will get discouraged, and they might misunderstand, and they might get very offended, or they might get upset, or they might not fully grasp what is being explained because their level is not as the level of other people. This is just like when it comes to university courses. To take certain courses, you have to have taken certain prerequisites. If you haven't taken those prerequisites, you're not allowed to come to that class. You're not allowed to take that course. Why? Because you're not at that level. And until you reach that level, you cannot fully benefit from what is being taught. In fact, your thinking or your understanding might be wrong. You might misunderstand. You might get frustrated and you might leave. So, if a person does not allow certain people, if a teacher does not allow certain people from coming to a particular class, then is it concealing knowledge? Is it depriving them from seeking knowledge? No. There should be a reason. There should be a reason. Because many times people say that if you don't let us attend this course, take this course, then you're depriving me and you'll be asked about it. No. The teacher has the choice. And in fact, it is in the favor of that student. This is not concealing knowledge. And this also shows to us, this bab also teaches us that the teacher should always keep in mind and be considerate of the level of the students. Give them what they can take. Give them what they can understand. And always check the mafasid in contrast to the masalih, the harm in contrast to the benefit. What is greater? For example, a person could come and take an advanced level course, for instance, this course. But if they don't even know how to read Arabic, they have no idea about the meaning of the Quran, they have never been exposed to such knowledge, then what will happen? They will get very discouraged. A person who was perhaps an A student is failing practically every test, so they'll be very, very discouraged. So, a person must be very careful about who is in front of them and give them what they are able to take, and only allow those students to study something that they can understand. Otherwise, what will happen? They will be discouraged and they will also discourage other people. Never study this. Too hard, too difficult. So, this way, the harm will outweigh the benefit. So always consider the two. وَقَالَ عَلِيٌّ, and Ali said, meaning Ali radiallahu anhu, حَدِّثُ النَّاسِ, narrate to the people, meaning teach them, what? بِمَا يَعْرِفُونَ, بِمَا, with that which يَعْرِفُونَ, they know, meaning they are able to learn. Narrate to the people what they're familiar with, what they can take, what they can understand. أَتُحِبُّونَ, do you love أَن يُكَذَّبَ اللَّهُ وَرَسُولُهُ, that Allah and His Messenger should be denied? Meaning, if you give to people what they cannot understand, what they cannot take, then what will happen? They will refuse to accept what Allah has said. They will refuse to accept what the Messenger ﷺ has said. And you don't want that. So don't put people in fitna. Don't cause them to disbelieve. Rather, give them what they can take. حدثنا عبيد الله بن موسى عن معروف بن خربوذ عن أبي الطفيل عن علي بذلك. So, we see that people should be given what they can take, and what is not possible for them to understand, then don't give it to them. Even if it may be from the Quran and the Sunnah. Even if it is something from the Quran, even if it is something from the Hadith, don't give it to them unless they can take it. unless they're able to understand it. Because if you tell them, then what's going to happen? They will not be able to take it and they will disbelieve. They will reject. So what is greater? What is more worse? Ignorance or disbelief? What is worse? Disbelief. I remember hearing a story about there was once upon a time a king who wanted to become Muslim. He was interested in Islam, but he asked that, I love alcohol, I cannot leave it. So what should I do? They said, no, you have to leave alcohol if you want to become Muslim. He says, fine, I won't. He didn't accept Islam. And as a result, his people also didn't accept Islam. I mean, alcohol is definitely haram. But he could have been told another way, that accept, become Muslim, and, we'll see afterwards. We'll see afterwards. The people who embraced Islam, initially at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, when the commands concerning alcohol and zina and all of that were not revealed, they were still involved in such things. And gradually the commands came. Because it's not possible for a person to change immediately, especially when these habits are so strong, are a part of them. So give to the people what they can take. So for instance, if a beginner group or people who are not that aware of the Quran, of ulum al-Quran, if you're telling them, oh, this verse is abrogated, then what's going to happen? They're going to be confused. If you tell them, oh, there's another qira'ah as well, they're going to be like, what? There's another recitation as well of this word and it says this. They'll be surprised. It will cause them to doubt the Quran. So give to the people what they can take. Don't give them what they're not able to take, even if it may be from the Quran and Sunnah. But does it mean you don't give them what is in the Quran and Sunnah at all? No. You're going to build their level of ilm gradually, one step after the other. And then eventually you give them. So for example, if a person is learning fiqh, it's the first fiqh course they're taking. Are you going to confuse them with all different opinions? So they're like, okay, so does it break my wudu or does it not break my wudu? Everything is okay and everything is not okay. What am I supposed to do? So a basic course, basic fiqh, don't teach people about all the opinions out there because you're going to make people confused. So for instance, in the course that you were taught over here, we just teach you simple fiqh. What the evidence is from the Quran, what the evidence is from the Sunnah. We don't go into the opinions of scholars. We don't go into the madhahib. Why? Because then people get confused. So gradually build them up. Gradually increase their level.
And he kept asking, do I have to pray 5 times a day? Do I have to give up this and this? And basically what we tried to tell him was that just accept Islam and then later you can do it on your own pace. But that wasn't enough. Basically people had to convince him that, it's basically we said that, Islam is like an apple. You take a bite at a time. Rather than try to gulp the whole apple, what will happen? You won't be able to chew it up.
Yes.
So that he kind of accepted that. And subhanAllah, as soon as he did his shahada, he himself was like, so how will I learn how to pray? Nobody said, come, I will teach you or anything. He himself seemed like, subhanAllah, like a different person. You could see instantly, and I was thinking how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgives the sin once a person accepts. So, it's like just the shayateen trying to prevent him from taking the shahada. But as soon as they take the shahada, it's almost like the fitrah comes out. The sisters start saying, so where can I get the hijab? How do I wear it? And the brothers start saying, so how do I do this and this? You know what I mean? So it's just that initial stage.
But if you tell them from before, you can't have this food, you can't have this, and these cookies that you've been having, they have, this byproduct in them, so don't touch them. They'll be like, this Islam is too difficult. They'll get intimidated and they will never come near Islam.
Assalamu alaikum. I just remember Dr. Zakir Naik when he was talking about dawah, and he mentioned the same situation where if someone asks, well, I can't stop, zina or drinking, etc. And he said that, remind them that the greatest sin which Allah will not forgive is shirk, but everything else Allah may forgive.
This shows that a person may take time to improve. He doesn't have to do everything at once. It's best if he does it. But everybody's level is different. And as long as a person has the intention to get there, to become better, then inshallah, Allah is most forgiving. But if a person says, no, I'm never going to get there, I'm never going to do this is not for me, then that is a different case. So everybody's level is different, everybody's situation is different, everybody improves in a different way. The same is for Muslims who want to become better people. So for instance, the first day, if people start learning, yes, a girl has to wear hijab. A person has to pray 5 times a day. There's no choice about that. But you're not going to say in the first day, so you become perfect today. You start praying 5 times a day today. If you start doing that, they'll run away. They won't be able to keep it up. But if, for example, they're coming to you at a particular time to learn, and you tell them, okay, it's time for Asr, I'm going to pray, come pray with me. And they pray with you. Every day, when they come at that time, they pray with you. And then, they're interested themselves. That, okay, if I want to pray Maghrib, how will I pray? If I want to pray Isha, how will I pray? Gradually, one after the other. Think about it. Children, even when they start praying, they have a period of 3 years, 7 to 10. 7 to 10, 3 years. At 7, teach them, and at 10, be strict. If they don't, then punish them. So you have 3 years to improve. So people take time. They need time. So Isha is mandatory. They have to pray. So you can make some other arrangements with them. Have them nap right after Maghrib, and then wake them up at Isha time. Okay? So that they can pray. That the change that comes gradually, that's much better. A person is more firm in it. And if a person rushes into something, then he gets exhausted, he loses steam, and then he gives up. That the wahi also that came gradually, one after the other. And initially it would come, with long intervals. And then it started coming regularly. Everybody grows at a different pace. People learn at their own pace. Children reach their developmental miles at their own pace.
They are giving us very big example. I'll give you a very small example. In Ta'lim al-Quran, we learn Salatul Nabi, and I start learning we should do Rafa Yadain. So I start doing Rafa Yadain, and my mom saw me once, and she was furious. She said, now you change your maslak? I'm not going to talk to you because you change your maslak. So from that day I say, okay, sorry mom, I will not do it. So I make sure that if my mom is praying with me, I never do it in front of her. Because I don't want her to get confused with these things. Because it's not like I can pray without it. So when time comes, inshallah, I will explain her. But when some people are not ready mentally for something, they don't accept it.
Yes. Like it happens with many women, for example, when they want to start wearing hijab, their family opposes. And they're very strongly opposing it. So, at this, my suggestion is always that don't go on wearing, for example, an abaya outright. Because if you wear, a black abaya, what's going to happen? It's going to scare them, and it's going to make them feel very threatened, and it's going to cause family problems. So, we know about the minimum requirement of an abaya. So, for example, if you're wearing a skirt underneath and a jacket on top, which comes up to your knees, make sure that it's not bright and overly printed, and you're wearing a hijab that's, covering you properly, start with that. Step by step, gradually. Let them accept as well. And the ideal situation is that a person does everything at once. Because we have been told, فَاسْتَبِقُوا الْخَيْرَاتِ وَسَارِعُوا إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ. So we have been told to rush in good deeds. That's definitely true. And it's ideal. But everyone is not able to do that. And we should not ignore or belittle the challenges that people face. We think it's easy. If a husband does not accept you wearing hijab, leave him. Wow. Very easy to say that. But do you know how difficult that is? Do you know how challenging it may be? How much disaster it can, cause to a family? And people might turn away from the deen just because of you then. So when the allowance is there, then take benefit from the allowance. It doesn't mean that if you are able to do the very best, then still you go for, the allowances. No. The allowances are for who? For people who need them. Okay, so for example, your daughter is not ready for hijab. So what should you do? I'll tell you what my mother did with me. When I was young, before 12 years of age, I would wear hijab, I would not wear hijab. Sometimes I would wear it, sometimes I wouldn't wear it. Some days I would wear it to school, other days I won't wear it to school. But when I reached puberty, then after that, it was understood that I have to wear it. And if I didn't wear it, my mother would be like, where's your hijab? And I remember once when I was older, I started wearing an abaya, off and on, here, there. I was probably 17 years of age, and 16 or 17, something like that, and I went somewhere without my abaya, and she said, you went like this? It wasn't like, where's your abaya? Wear it. You cannot step out until you wear it. No, it wasn't like that. It was considered normal that you have to wear. I remember I had to struggle a lot. And I knew that my mother understands. And she was giving me time. And alhamdulillah, I studied the Quran at the most perfect time. So my mother didn't have to tell me, do this. I made the choice myself. So educate your children. Teach them the deen. Let them make the choices themselves. Because I have seen it amongst, in close family, that people who have been forced to do certain things and they run away. As soon as they have the choice to not do something, it goes off. All their lives they have been covering, but on the wedding day, it's amazing what happens. It's as if the person is not the same. And after their wedding, after their marriage, they're a different person. In their parents' house, they wore abaya, hijab, niqab, because the parents forced it on them. And as soon as they were married with their husband, it's gone. So what you want is stability for your children, for your family. And for that, you have to go gradually. This hikmah is very, very important.
He instructed Mu'adh bin Jabal radiallahu anh, is that tell the people about Allah's oneness. I think this is how, I'm just paraphrasing, but he also said that go gradually. The message was that go gradually, tell them about the salah, that they have to pray 5 times. And then when they start doing that, tell them about the zakah, and so on and so forth. So there are so many examples in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and also, right, the way we just saw, and in the actions also of an individual. So there is really no need to rush to do something that will fall flat afterwards.
And also, start from a very young age. The problem is that when children are not told at all when they're younger, then when they're older and they're told, it's very hard for them. Very hard for them. If you were present at the lecture which Sheikh Muhammad al-Sharif gave at Ilm Fest of how to, make your children love the Qur'an. So what's the first thing he said? That make their childhood such that they love the Qur'an. They see the Qur'an, they hear the Qur'an, they want the Qur'an. And when they want it, it will come naturally. So you have to start from a young age. So for instance, when they're young, when they're small, when you will wear hijab, you show it to them, and they have their own hijab which they can wear, when they go to the masjid or when they're praying salah. And girls love to dress up. They love to do that. So encourage them.
Remember my father, may Allah have mercy on him, he used to tell me when I was a little, pray, and if you pray, you'll go to Jannah, and Jannah is beautiful. He described Jannah for me. From there, I like to pray, subhanAllah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, when I was working in gynae and ops, and I saw the Indonesian couples, the baby is born like a boy or a girl, they bring a small cap with them. So just the baby is delivered, and they want their baby girl or boy to wear the cap. So the girl looks so cute when it's coming out, and the boy also. So if you put them from the young age, like you said, they will never say you, why should I wear it after that? And one sheikh was telling that I have a 2-year-old daughter, and whenever we are going outside, I keep the shoes and a scarf there. So whenever I said, okay, go bring your shoes. So when she brings the shoes, the scarf is overhanging there, so she's also bringing that with her.
Yes. And sometimes it happens that despite all your efforts, you try indirectly, sometimes directly, you try in a nice way, trying to show from a very young age, but then as you're older, their friends are such, or the influence is such that it's impossible for them to do it. Then just as you would advise your child to do something that's necessary for them, likewise you will advise them to do this as well, which is necessary for them. If your child decides to drop out of school, you will never accept that, and you will show it to them. You will not beat them up, you will not necessarily yell at them, you will not necessarily cut off their phone or take their laptop away. No, but you will do some things to make them realize that this is a choice, my dear, that you don't have. You have to do it. So, same thing. When it comes to those things that are, we don't really have a choice about, then we have to bring them up on the table one day or the other. We have to bring them up. We cannot ignore them for too long. So anyway, the bab is to give some knowledge to some people. Make it exclusively for them. Making a special class for certain individuals. حدثنا إسحاق بن إبراهيم قال حدثنا معاذ بن هشام قال حدثني أبي. So Mu'adh ibn Hisham, he said that my father narrated to me. Who was his father? Hisham. عن قتادة. قال, he said, حدثنا أنس بن مالك أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, that indeed the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم, ومعاذ and Mu'adh, رديفه, radif, ra dal fa. What does that mean? Can you think of a word from the Quran? One that comes behind, one that follows after, immediately after. So Mu'adh radhiallahu anhu was sitting behind him, was on his rear. Where? Ala rahli, on a journey. So they were sitting on an animal, and the Prophet ﷺ was in the front, and Mu'adh was right behind him. Just imagine, they were very close to each other. If you're sitting right behind a person, I don't know if you've done that ever on a motorbike or a bicycle, if you're right behind, very close. Qala, he said, the Prophet ﷺ said at that time, Ya Mu'adh ibn Jabal, O Mu'adh ibn Jabal. Qala, he said, Mu'adh said, Labbaik ya Rasulallah wa sa'daik. Labbaik. What does this word labbaik mean? We say this also at Hajj. Here I am present, here I obey you, I respond to you. The word labbaika is from the root letters lam, ba, ya. From the word laba, which is to follow, to obey, to respond. And when a command is given, a person obeys. He carries out the command that is given. And this word labbaika, ka, you, and labbay, this is actually tathniya, dual. And we know in the Quran that tathniya sometimes is used for two people, but sometimes it's also used for a repeated action. Not just tathniya, but also plural. So, for instance, we learn, Al-qiya fi jahannama. Al-qiya fi jahannama. It doesn't mean you too throw into hellfire, but rather throw. The command is being given again and again. Alqi. So, labbaik. This tathniya is for what? That I am here. I respond to you twice. I will obey you twice. Not once, but twice. I will carry out your command again and again. So, labbaika wa sa'daika. Sa'day is from musa'ada, which is to help, to be at someone's service. So again, sa'dayka, this is tathniya, that I am ready at your service twice, again and again. Once and twice. Once and again. So labbaik wa sa'dayk. This was the response of Mu'adh ibn Jabal. Labbayka ya Rasulullah wa sa'dayk. Qala, the Prophet ﷺ said, Ya Mu'adh, O Mu'adh. And he said, Qala labbayka ya Rasulullah wa sa'dayk. Thalathan. 3 times. The Prophet ﷺ called him, and he said, Labbayk wa sa'dayk. He called him again, Labbayk wa sa'dayk. He called him again, Labbayk wa sa'dayk. So the Prophet ﷺ really made him very attentive. Made him very eager. Very, very eager to learn what he was going to say. Qala, he said, the Prophet ﷺ then said, Ma min ahadin yashhadu, there is no person who bears witness, Allah ilaha illallah, that there is no God worthy of worship but Allah, wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah, and that Muhammad is a messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How does he say it? Sidqan min qalbihi. Sidqan, truly from his heart. He really means that statement. He says it very consciously. He knows about what he's saying, and he means it from his heart. He truly believes in it. So anyone who says this, illa except حرمه الله على النار, Allah will forbid him on the fire, meaning he will not be allowed to enter the hellfire. Such a person will not be allowed to enter the hellfire. Fire is forbidden for him. قال يا رسول الله, Mu'adh ibn Jabal, he said, O Messenger of Allah, أَفَلَا أُخْبِرُ, shall I not inform bihi of it الناس, the people, فَيَسْتَبْشِرُ, so that they can be very happy? Should I not tell everybody about it so that they can be very happy? Qala, he said, إِذَن then يَتَّكِلُوا. If you tell them, then they will do tawakkul. They will do tawakkul on what? They will only rely on this, and they will not bother to do amal. So, why did Mu'adh ibn Jabal narrate this hadith then? وَأَخْبَرَ بِهَا, and Mu'adh ibn Jabal, he informed of it, Mu'adh عِنْدَ مَوْتِهِ, near his death. Why? تَأَثُّمًا, to refrain from sin. Out of fear that he would be sinning. What sin would he be committing if he did not tell people about this? The sin of concealing knowledge. So he kept it with him. He didn't tell anybody about it for as long as he could. And then finally, he told people because it's the right of the people to know. What do we see in this hadith? That the Prophet ﷺ, he said something very important, very, you can say good, something that would be a source of very good news for people, but he discouraged that everyone be informed of it. Why? Because it will put them into fitna. It will cause them to not do amal. And we know that if a person says such a statement truly from the heart, then it's not possible that he will not do amal. He will definitely do amal. But we know that every person thinks that they're good. You ask any person, do you sin? Do you do something wrong? Are you a true believer? They will always say that they are a good person. Everybody has a very good opinion about themselves. So, if a person just relies on this and doesn't bother do amal, then it will, lead him to wrongdoing. It will lead him to actually being deprived of this reward, of this benefit, because of this false image that he can have in his mind about himself. And we see this amongst Muslims. People claim that eventually we are going to Jannah, to do whatever you want. It's okay, Allah is forgiving. People do have such hopes in them. Next hadith. حدثنا مسدد قال حدثنا معتمر قال سمعت أبي معتمر, he said, I heard my father. قال, he said, سمعت أنسا, I heard Anas. قال, he said, ذكر لي, it was mentioned to me that أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لمعاذ, that the Prophet ﷺ said to Mu'adh, Man laqiya Allah, whoever meets Allah, la yushriku bihi shay'an, and he does not associate any partner with him, dakhala al-Jannah, he will enter Jannah. So I was informed that Mu'adh ibn Jabal was told about this by who? By the Prophet ﷺ. And Mu'adh, he said, قَالَ أَلَا أُبَشِّرُ النَّاسِ, should I not give this good news to the people? قَالَ, the Prophet ﷺ said, لَا, no, إِنِّي أَخَافُ, indeed I fear, أَن يَتَّكِلُوا, that they will just rely on this. Now earlier we discussed about how you shouldn't give difficult things to people that they're not ready to take, because it will cause them to be in fitna. Now likewise, we should not make the deen too easy for the people, so that they do not, strive in it, they don't get better in their deen. Don't say to the people, yeah, this is okay, this is fine. No, don't settle for less when it comes to the deen. There should be a balance. Don't make it too hard. Don't make it too easy. Don't make it too hard that they think they cannot do anything. And don't make it too easy that they think they don't have to do anything. A balance must be there. Look at Mu'adh ibn Jabal, when he heard about this, he wanted to give the good news to the people. Well-wishing. So he liked the rest of the people. He wanted that they should receive this good news and they should be happy. Sometimes, we go into an extreme of just pleasing people, giving them good news again and again. There should be a balance, Bashir and Nadir. That he heard one statement and he was so excited that he wanted to tell everybody about it, because it was something that would bring good news to the people. It would make them happy. Likewise, we learn about so many things in the Quran that bring joy to us. Really, they make us happy and excited. So we should also tell that to other people as well, so that they can be happy as well. Bab al-haya'u fil ilm. Al-haya, modesty, shyness, in what? In knowledge. We learned about haya in Kitabul Iman as well. That al-haya is min al-iman. It is a part of faith, it is from faith. And we discussed that haya is of two types. One haya is that which is praiseworthy, and the other is that which is blameworthy. Praiseworthy is the haya which prevents a person from doing wrong, and it makes a person a better person. And the blameworthy haya is which one? Which prevents a person from doing good and causes him to do wrong. So, al-haya fil ilm, shyness in knowledge. When it comes to knowledge, when it comes to ilm, we should not have haya. Because if shyness is preventing us from learning, from teaching, from asking, from finding out, it causes us to be hesitant, then this is something that's not good. This is something that is not liked, because it is preventing you from khair. So that haya would not be good. وَقَالَ مُجَاهِدٌ, and Mujahid said, لَا يَتَعَلَّمُ, he will never learn. What? Al-ilma, the knowledge. Who will never learn ilm? مُسْتَحْيٍ, a person who is shy. وَلَا, and nor مُسْتَكْبِرٌ, the person who is arrogant. The person who is shy and the person who is arrogant, these two will never learn. They will never be able to acquire ilm. I have a grammatical question for you here. Mustahyin wala mustakbirun. What kind of murakkab is this? Mustahyin wala mustakbirun. Murakkab? Atfi, because there's atf in here, right? So, what's the rule? That both the words, the Ma'tuf and the ma'tuf alayh should have the same grammatical state. But we see that mustahyin and mustakbirun. Why? Mustahyin, the kasratain, and mustakbirun, dhammatain. What should it be? It should be dhamma. Because it's marfu'. Because he will never learn. He will never learn. So both should be marfu'. Why is mustahyin majroor? It's not majroor. Mustahyin is not majroor. It is actually marfu'. Then why are there two kasra under it? Because you cannot have dhamma on it. You don't say mustahyun. You don't say that. This is just like hudan wa rahmatun. Hudan wa rahmatun. Because you can't have hudun. You can't have dhammatain on huda. You understand? So huruf illa, these letters, they don't accept every haraka. They don't accept every haraka. So whatever haraka they do take, that is what you leave on them. But the grammatical state is known by the context or by other words. Is it clear or is it confusing? Clear? Mustahyin should technically have dhamma on it. But the thing is that mustahyin cannot take a dhamma on it because of the ya at the end. Because the huruf illa. Because of the ya, basically, you cannot have dhammatain on it. There is actually some examples that are mentioned in your grammar book as well, from the Quran. So if you want to know more about it, look at more examples, you can find them there. So anyway, وَقَالَ مُجَاهِدٌ لَا يَتَعَلَّمُ الْعِلْمَ مُسْتَحْيٍ وَلَا مُسْتَكْبِرٌ. The person who is shy, the person who is arrogant, these two can never learn. Why? Because mustahi would be too shy to ask, and mustakbir would say, don't bother. It's nothing. It's not that important. It's not that necessary. He will belittle knowledge. So he will not ask. He will not learn. So both will be deprived of khair. So what does it show? That a balance is required between haya and kibr. A balance is required. A person should not be too shy, too hesitant to ask anything. And at the same time, a person should not be too arrogant, thinking, I know everything, so don't bother. I don't care. No. A person must be eager for knowledge. And he must inquire. And also remember that ask even if it may be concerning a matter that's very basic, very simple. If you don't get it, if you don't understand, and if you have the opportunity to ask, ask. Don't shy away over there. Because if you don't ask, then either shyness is preventing you or pride is preventing, and both are not good here. People who have a very casual attitude, that is kibr. Because if a person really valued knowledge, he would not be so casual with it. He would take it seriously. What do you ignore? What do you not attach any value to? What do you think is not that important? You think you're above that. If you ever have to pour water out of a jug into a glass, then that glass has to be beneath the jug. So likewise, if a person wants to receive, he has to, be humble. Humility has to be there. Because if there is humility, only then the water can come in. Only then the knowledge can come in. So, humility is necessary and confidence is also necessary. Confidence not to the extent that a person becomes arrogant, but confidence that enables a person to inquire, to ask, to comment, to give his input. That is also necessary. Now, there are some matters in the deen which people are generally shy about, meaning they don't like to talk about those things. It's not considered good in many cultures. It's considered indecent, in fact, to talk about such things. But if such things are a part of the deen, then over there also we cannot have haya. وَقَالَتْ عَائِشَةُ Aisha said, نِعْمَ النِّسَاءُ. How good are the women. Which women? نِسَاءُ الْأَنصَارِ, the women of the Ansar. How good are they? That لَمْ يَمْنَعْهُنَّ الْحَيَاء. That shyness did not prevent them. أَن يَتَفَقَّهْنَ فِي الدِّينِ. That they develop understanding in the religion. Shyness never prevented them from understanding the deen. If there was something of the deen that they had to understand, they were never too shy to ask. So how good are the women of the Ansar? What would people say today? How shameless. They have no haya. How overconfident, indecent, obscene. No, this is not the case. The thing is that when it comes to, learning the deen, we become very shy over there. But when it comes to learning other things, there's no shyness. So shyness is good, but it should be at the right time, at the right place, in the right way. When it comes to learning the deen, there should be no haya in those matters. And we see that some women of the Ansar, they would come and ask the Prophet ﷺ such questions that a woman would be shy to ask another woman. But they would come and ask him, not because they had no haya in them, but because there should be no haya in the matters of the deen. If it is a matter of halal and haram, if it's a matter of tahara or, impurity, and if they had to find out, they would find out. Because, it's a matter of salah, whether your salah is accepted or not. It's a matter of ghusl, whether you have to do ghusl or not. A person might say, do ghusl anyway, what's the big deal? No, sometimes it's not possible. You have to know. You have to know about these matters. And it doesn't mean that a person becomes obscene or he becomes inappropriate or he starts talking about such matters in every majlis, before every teacher, before every scholar. No, you shouldn't become inappropriate about it. No, stay appropriate. Have a normal attitude towards it. Don't go to extremes. Because the purpose is to learn. So neither be too shy nor cross the bounds. And if you think about it, when it comes to learning ilm, a person must always have maturity. There are some such subjects, some topics that we might find very awkward or we might find very funny. So control your laughter, control your giggles, control your emotions over there. And this is just like, if a person has to go to a male doctor for a genuine reason, for inability to control the situation, that's the only option and it's a state of extreme necessity, then at that time a person will be, decent in the way that they speak and they will not start giggling away or shying away. No, you stay normal. Likewise the doctor also, what does he do? He stays normal. And if he doesn't display a normal behavior, then it's a problem. Right? So similarly, when it comes to the matters of deen, you have to learn about something, even if it's a male scholar, male teacher, ask, but in a manner that is appropriate. Both have to display appropriate behavior. And the fact is that such matters cannot be ignored. Such matters cannot be ignored. You cannot do without asking them. You cannot do without finding out about them. Because it can cause you to make serious errors in your salah. For example, there are rulings concerning tahara, concerning intimacy, which people must be aware of. And it happens that when children start discovering their bodies or, they reach puberty and such things are being spoken of in school amongst friends or they watch outside, then they're curious and they want to know. And if the parents don't tell them, then what's going to happen? They're going to start talking about such things secretly behind closed doors and it's going to lead them to greater problems. So, talk about such stuff that is necessary for the children to know in a normal manner. Don't make it a big deal. And if a child has a question, then don't, say that, don't ask about these things. This is something that has nothing to do with you. I remember, you might find this a little strange, awkward, but many women, have such situations. This sister once told me about, her daughter was very curious about why there are these small diaper-looking things in the washroom. And she kept asking her mother, what is this? What is this? I wanted to. So the first thing is you should be careful about displaying such things in your house, so that your children don't see such things. And if they do ever ask about these things, then just display normal behavior. Don't say, don't make a shocking expression on your face and cover your mouth and start laughing and no, just pretend as though it's nothing. Pretend as though it's nothing. Don't make a big deal out of it. Children monkey see, monkey do. So whenever they see their parents doing something, they imitate. Many times it happens that, children when they see, women who are expecting or who are nursing, then they start imitating them. They put something in front of their tummy and I'm having a baby and she has a baby and he has a baby. Everybody has a baby in the tummy. Don't make it a big deal. Just act normal. Okay, what's in your hands? Did you see that car? Where's your doll? Distract them. Don't corrupt those innocent minds, because the moment you start giggling, they will know it is something. And I have to find out. I have to learn about it. There are some questions which cannot be asked in front of everybody. And we will learn about how Ali radiallahu anhu, he had a question asked through someone because he was shy to ask directly. Because the Prophet ﷺ was his father-in-law and he was hesitant to do that. But he did not deprive himself of that knowledge, rather he requested somebody else to ask. So these questions are important, and you have to answer them. Ask them in a way that is appropriate, and answer them in a way that is appropriate. So for example, if there are two children, one is a girl, one is a boy, and you see that the girl is older, and she is curious, she wants to know, and the boy is also there, so you tell the daughter separately. You don't have to tell the son about it as well, or the younger daughter about it as well. Yes, alunaka, they ask you. So the people ask the Prophet ﷺ, and shyness should not prevent us from learning about such matters. Because, this is, our physical needs, our physical body, sexuality, all of these things cannot be ignored. It's a major part of life. And we know that marriage is something that is recommended. I mean, people get married and they come across such issues, and girls do reach puberty, boys do reach puberty. These are real issues that cannot be ignored, and we have to be aware of them. And children must be aware of them. And when these things are being taught in school, when they are, very easily available in books, on the internet, then you should tell them what is allowed, what is not allowed, what the proper way is, the limits of halal and haram. We should teach them so that they also learn to control themselves. They also know what is permissible and what is not permissible.
Well, I was thinking you were already actually on this topic, that if especially for us Muslim women, we have to tell our children what is halal and haram, because it doesn't take long for them to be exposed into whatever is being taught into the public schools, and we don't even want to go there, inshallah. So to protect yourself, you need to impart the knowledge to your children in a very sensible and very direct manner, so that they understand and satisfy all kinds of curiosities they have. Yes. So they are not left with any question that they're asking their bus driver or the girl next door or anybody.
Very true. And children, when they're very, very young, from that point onwards, they become very curious. This is why we learned that, when children are of a particular age, then separate their beds. Because then they become very aware of these things. So when they do become curious, when they want to know, satisfy them. I'm not saying go into an extreme, but satisfy them, give them as much information as necessary. For example, if a child asks, where do babies come from? You can tell them that from the mother's tummy. Allah Ta'ala, He makes the baby in the tummy and the baby comes out. Simple. You don't have to say, bird brings it. We brought the baby from the hospital. The child knows there's something wrong with the mother's body. It's not normal. So, tell them, Allah gave us this baby. Allah made the baby in the tummy. So, simple. Of course, in stages. And they will find out themselves. So tell them the perspective of the deen. Always tell them about such things with the perspective of the deen. Allah made this. Allah decided this.
It's so important to take this education, because when I see newly-wed brides dying on the first day, first night or second night, dying on the operation theater tables, because they don't have any knowledge of this thing. And imagine bride, just one day bride is dying. And the both couple, they don't have any information about this, how to keep the relations and how to do it. And it's so sad thing that, and believe me, 90% women suffer from psychological depressions and the problem, because they don't know the details of these things, and they are lying such a confused and depressed life.
Confused, they're unsure what is allowed, what is not allowed. So this is a major part of life. And just as you have to know about Salah, you have to know about the prerequisites of Salah. And many people, when they study such a hadith, when they learn about them, they reject hadith. How can something so shameful be mentioned in the hadith? How embarrassing. And you know what? The Yahud also, they objected as well. They mocked. They said, your Prophet teaches you how to use the washroom? They said, of course he does. And he tells us which hand to use and how to use the washroom. I have a problem with that. So, be confident about such things. It's nothing to be shy of. And if people need to know, tell them. And if it's mentioned in the Quran, then there should be no shyness concerning that. And as we learned earlier, give to the people what they can take. So when they're ready, give them. And don't think that when your child is 17 years of age or when their child is ready for marriage, then they need to learn about these things. No. These days, the age comes much earlier. because they're exposed to such things. So you tell them in a manner that is appropriate, just enough, and tell them, this is our age that we should be focusing on our studies, and, don't worry about relationships right now. When you're older, inshallah, you get married, you'll have a good spouse. Children are curious. They're going out with this, they have a girlfriend, they have a boyfriend. Explain to them that in our deen, after marriage, you have a partner, not before. So explain to them in a manner that is appropriate, so that it's easy for them to accept as well. Definitely innocent minds are corrupted, but if you think about it, you can tell your child that, this is your part of body that you have to cover, but the moment they walk out of the house, they go to a park and they see something completely different, you are living in a different society. And you have to teach your children from a young age to lower your gaze. Honestly, I take my son to the park and he's noticing things that he didn't notice last year. So I take him at a time that is, suitable. Other people are not there. It's more hard for me, more difficult for me, but I make that effort. And when he's looking, I distract him. Where's your water bottle? Where's your juice box? Where are your chips? Is Radia okay? I ask him such questions to distract him so that he's not looking at other people and he looks, at what his business is.
The billboards there have nude pictures. And how do you stop a 13-year-old from looking? Because his mouth was wide open and suddenly you see these things that you're not exposed to. So we had to sit him down, my husband had to sit him down and explain to him that this is part of a female body or a male body, and we're not supposed to look at those things as Muslims, you're supposed to lower our gaze. And you choose appropriate times, and when things come and happen, you start telling them. And pre-puberty is a perfect time to start preparing them, I think.
Yes. And children are naturally curious at that time because the older sister is not praying, and what's happening, why is she not praying, she's not fasting, right? So children become naturally curious. If you think about it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put it into, our human nature. Gradually we grow. So when they're curious, satisfy them. When they need to know, then tell them what the appropriate way is. And, for example, if your daughter, she reaches the age of puberty, she should know. She should know about it from before that, this is something that happens, so that she knows how to deal with that situation. Otherwise, if she has no idea, I'm sure you've heard stories of people who had no idea what it was and they were in total mess. I know of a lady, she said she thought she had cancer. She was crying and crying and crying away. She thought she was going to die because she had no idea. It can cause such things. And the same thing with boys. Even they need to know about what concerns them. And it's the father's responsibility to teach the boy. And, you feel the father is not doing his job, then the mother has to. It is your responsibility that you teach your son what he needs to know. It's important for him. And if you're shy, then alhamdulillah, there's so much literature out there, Islamic fiqh books. Mark some pages, highlight some parts and tell him, you have to read this please. And if you have any questions, ask me or ask, this older uncle or older brother or whoever, but you need to know about this. Okay. Subhanakallahumma bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.